tried to speak Tagalog. Big mistake. Or at least, that's what I thought at first. When I arrived in the Philippines, I didn't expect that language could be so musical.
Back to my channel.
People didn't just talk.
Today,
they sang their words.
Talk about
every kumain ka na
really
sounded like a little melody. Every sige na, please, like a soft drumbeat of kindness. I fell in love with the sound of it, even before I understood a single word. But my love for Tagalog soon turned into chaos. When I decided to try speaking it myself, it all started one hot morning in Manila. I was staying in a small Airbnb near a sari-sari store. The air smelled like fried garlic and jeepney smoke, and the sound of tricycles filled the street like an urban symphony. I was determined. Today was the day I would speak Tagalog. I practiced the whole night before, whispering phrases into my pillow. Magandang umaga. Salamat po. Pabili po ng tubig. Easy, right? I had watched enough Filipino vlogs to sound natural. I even practiced my smile in the mirror. The warm, friendly Filipino smile. So when I walked into the sari-sari store that morning, I was ready. The lady behind the counter, around 60 years old, looked at me curiously. I smiled wide, straightened my shoulders, and said confidently, Magandang umaga po. Pabili po ng tubig? She froze for a second, blinked twice, and then laughed. Not a small laugh. A full, belly-holding, tears in her eyes laugh. I stood there, confused, clutching my phone. What did I say wrong? Then she called her neighbor. Oy, si ate foreigner marunong magtagalog. Within seconds, 2 more women came running, giggling, as I stood in the middle of the street holding my bottle of water like a microphone. They weren't mocking, not at all. They were delighted, and that was my first Filipino language lesson. When you try, Filipinos don't judge you. They celebrate you. They taught me that day that I sounded like I was about to sing a love song, not order water. Apparently, I had said, Pabili po ng tubig, in such a dramatic, romantic tone that it sounded like I was confessing my love to the bottle. From that day, I became their favorite customer. Every morning they would greet me with, Magandang umaga, ate Ukrainian, and I would reply, proudly but nervously, Magandang umaga din po. Sometimes I would mix up the words, say Magandang tubig po, which means good water, and they'd burst out laughing again. But something beautiful happened. Every mistake became a memory. One time, at a carinderia, I wanted to say I'm full. The word for that is busog. But in my nervousness, I said basog, which apparently doesn't mean anything. But the way I said it made everyone stop eating and look at me like I had cast a spell. The Lola behind the counter laughed so hard she gave me extra rice. Then there was the jeepney incident. I was trying to tell the driver to stop. I had memorized the phrase para po, meaning stop, please, easy. But when the time came, my accent betrayed me. Instead of para po, I said parrot po. The entire jeepney turned to look at me. One college student grinned and said, Miss, wala pong parrot dito! And everyone burst into laughter. Even the driver smiled through the rearview mirror, shaking his head. I laughed too, cheeks burning, clutching my bag like a lifeline. But deep inside I felt something warm. These people weren't laughing at me. They were laughing with me. In Ukraine, when you speak wrong in another language, people might correct you sharply. But here, they laugh gently, help you fix it, and make you feel like part of the joke, not the punchline. So I kept trying. I started talking to everyone. Tricycle drivers, vendors, kids selling sampaguita. I'd ask magkano po, even if I already knew the price. Sometimes I'd accidentally mix English and Tagalog into something completely alien. Like, pwede po bang picture tayo please? Which roughly means, can we picture please? But people understood me anyway, because Filipinos don't just listen to words. They listen with their hearts. One afternoon, I was invited to a Filipino birthday party, my first ever. I was nervous. I had learned some basic phrases to impress everyone. So when I arrived, I greeted the mom, proudly saying, Happy birthday po. She laughed. Ako? Hindi ako birthday. I had just greeted the wrong person. Later I sat with the titas and tried to join the conversation. They were talking about food, and I wanted to say I liked the pancit. I meant to say, Masarap ang pancit, which means the pancit is delicious. Instead, I said, Masarap ako. Everyone gasped. then burst into uncontrollable laughter. It turns out, masarap ako means I'm delicious. My face turned redder than the spaghetti sauce. One of the titas said, "Aba confident si ate," and the whole group roared. I didn't know whether to hide under the table or laugh with them, but then they clapped for me. Ang galing mo mag-Tagalog. That's when I realized something truly magical. Filipinos appreciate effort more than perfection. Even if you make 100 mistakes, they see your heart. They see that you're trying to connect, and that's enough for them. After that day, I stopped being scared of saying things wrong. I began to have fun with the language. I learned words like pakikisama, harmony with others, and hiya, which means a deep sense of respect and modesty. I realized that Tagalog wasn't just a language. It was a mirror of Filipino kindness. Every po and opo taught me gentleness. Every salamat taught me gratitude. Every laughter at my mistakes taught me humility. And slowly, I started to sound less like a foreigner and more like someone who belonged. Sometimes, when I'd ride the tricycle and say, "Dito lang po," the driver would look surprised, then smile wide saying, "Marunong ka na, miss." And that moment, that little marunong ka na, felt better than any medal or certificate. It meant I had earned something deeper, acceptance. One night, my friends invited me to a karaoke night. They said, "Sing Tagalog song." I hesitated. Singing in a language I barely mastered, but they wouldn't take no for an answer. So I picked a song I'd heard everywhere. Bakit Pa by Jessa Zaragoza. The music started. I sang with my heavy accent, probably murdering every vowel. But they sang along anyway, cheering me on. I messed up the lyrics, laughed mid-song, but when it ended, they clapped like I just won the voice. That night, as I looked at them, laughing, clapping, teasing, I realized why I loved the Philippines so much. Here, mistakes aren't embarrassing. They're part of belonging. In Ukraine, we say language is power. But in the Philippines, I learned that language is connection. You don't have to be fluent to be understood. You just need to speak with kindness. And even though I started this journey thinking it was a big mistake, it turned out to be the best mistake I ever made. Because in trying to speak Tagalog, I learned how to speak Filipino love. By the time my first month in the Philippines ended, I was feeling like a local. Or at least I thought I was. I had a tan, I was eating rice for breakfast, and I even started saying opo to the security guards. I was unstoppable, until I opened my mouth again. It started one humid morning when I decided to surprise my landlady, Tita Susan, with some freshly baked bread from the local bakery. She was this sweet middle-aged woman who always called me anak, which I later learned means my child. So, I showed up at her door, clutching a bag of warm pandesal, and proudly said, "Tita, gusto mo bang kainin ako?" Her eyes widened. She froze. For a second, I thought maybe I'd said something very touching. Then she gasped, laughed so hard she almost dropped her mug, and said, "Ay naku, anak, wag mong sabihin yan." Apparently, I had just said, "Auntie, do you want to eat me?" I wanted to disappear into the floor. That's when I learned the cruel truth about Tagalog. One tiny word can completely change your meaning. I should have said, "Gusto mo bang kumain ng tinapay? Do you want to eat bread?" But I skipped the ang tinapay part, and well, suddenly I was offering myself as breakfast. Word spread fast in the neighborhood. For the next week, the tricycle drivers greeted me with teasing smiles, and one even said, "Ma'am, gusto ko rin kainin ka," followed by hysterical laughter. I laughed too, but inside I was crying in every language I knew. Still, I refused to give up. I was determined to master Tagalog. I started watching Filipino dramas with subtitles. My favorite was Ang Provinciano. I didn't always understand the plot, but I was obsessed with the way everyone shouted, "Walang hiya ka," at least once an episode. That's how I learned my next big lesson, the concept of hiya. There's no perfect English or Ukrainian translation for it. It's like shame, respect, and humility all in one. At first I thought Filipinos were just shy, but then I realized it's much deeper. Hiya shapes how people talk, how they argue, even how they give compliments. One time I tried to compliment my coworker by saying, "Ang ganda mo today. You're beautiful today." She blushed furiously and waved her hands, saying, "Hindi naman. Ikaw nga mas maganda." Then we spent 5 minutes arguing about who was more beautiful, until we both burst into laughter. In Ukraine, if you tell someone they're beautiful, they'll say thank you and move on. But in the Philippines, accepting a compliment feels too direct. They turn it into a game of modesty, like saying no means yes, but let's stay humble. That was when I started to fall in love with this country's small, gentle humility. But then came another phrase that nearly broke me. Utang na loob. I first heard it from my coworker, Arlene, after I helped her fix a PowerPoint presentation for her boss. She clasped my hands dramatically and said, "Thank you, sis. Utang na loob ko to sayo." I panicked. I thought she meant she owed me money. I tried to tell her, No, it's okay. You don't need to pay me back." She laughed so hard she nearly fell out of her chair.
No, utang na loob means emotional debt.
Gratitude from the heart. That phrase hit me deeply. In my culture, we say thank you, maybe buy someone a coffee later, and it's done. But in the Philippines, gratitude becomes something sacred, something that connects you. You don't just thank someone, you carry that kindness with you, almost forever. That night, I sat by my window listening to karaoke from the neighbor's house and thought about how beautiful that was. Utang na loob wasn't just about returning favors. It was about acknowledging how intertwined we all are. But of course, life decided to humble me again one morning. I was feeling confident enough to chat with my tricycle driver, Mang Jun. I wanted to tell him to drive slowly because I just had coffee and didn't want to spill it. I tried to say, "Dahan-dahan lang po, kakakape ko lang." Except what came out was, "Dahan-dahan lang po, kakakape ka lang." He turned around, eyebrows raised, and said, "Ako? Me?" Apparently, I had just told him he had just had coffee. Then he burst out laughing so hard that even the traffic cop smiled. It was around then that I started noticing something. Every mistake I made became an excuse for people to connect. Filipinos loved it when I tried, even when I failed spectacularly. Once at a sari-sari store, I tried to ask for shampoo. I said, "Pabili po ng shampoo, isang bote." The old lady behind the counter smiled and asked, "For your buhok?" I nodded proudly. "Yes, para sa buhok ko. Kasi gusto ko maging maganda, parang ikaw." She giggled, covered her mouth, and gave me an extra sachet, para bonus daw. That small kindness made my day. That's another Filipino magic word, pakikisama. It means getting along, building harmony, going with the flow. Even if life is messy or loud or hot as a boiling pot of sinigang, people here prioritize pakikisama, making sure everyone feels included. I saw it most clearly at a birthday party I got invited to by a friend's cousin's neighbor's dog walker. Yes, that's how connected people are here. There were 50 people, 2 karaoke microphones, and 1 giant lechon. At first, I was overwhelmed, but when I tried to sneak out, someone handed me a plate of food and said, "Kain muna, wag kang mahiyain. Eat first, don't be shy." I ended up staying for hours, singing "My Heart Will Go On" with strangers, getting roasted for my Tagalog accent, and laughing until my stomach hurt. I realized that pakikisama wasn't just a social habit. It was a way of surviving life together, with laughter and music as the glue. Another phrase that stuck with me was bahala na. At first I thought it meant carelessness. People said it all the time. When the power went out, when the rain ruined a plan, when traffic turned into chaos. "Bahala na," they'd sigh, shrugging with a smile. But after a while, I realized it wasn't apathy. It was faith. It meant trusting the universe, or God, or fate to take care of what you can't control. I started using it too. When I had to give a big presentation at work, I whispered to myself, "Bahala na." When my Tagalog teacher made me stand up and introduce myself in class, I took a deep breath and said, "Bahala na si Batman." Everyone burst into laughter. I had no idea Batman was part of the phrase until then. Each phrase, each word, began to feel like a window into the Filipino heart. One day, my friend B said something that summed it all up perfectly. We were sitting in a jeepney, sweating and stuck in traffic, but she looked peaceful. She said, "Alam mo, life here is hard sometimes. But we laugh, we sing, we help each other. That's our way." I looked around, the driver tapping to music, a baby asleep on her mother's lap, a vendor selling cold taho through the window. I realized that even when things were inconvenient, People here managed to make it beautifully human. My attempts to speak Tagalog weren't just about learning a language anymore. They were my way of learning them. The heart behind every po, every opo, every sige na, and ay naku. That night, I posted a short video on TikTok about my latest mistake, accidentally saying, "Ang init ng katawan mo, your body is hot," instead of, "Ang init ng panahon, the weather is hot." The comments section exploded with laughing emojis and same sis replies. Filipinos didn't mock me. They embraced me. Maybe that's why I kept trying, because even when I messed up, I felt loved for trying. By the end of month 2, my Tagalog wasn't perfect. I still confused ka and ko. I still used opo with toddlers, and I still froze every time someone said, "Anong ulam mo?" But I was different. I wasn't just speaking Tagalog anymore. I was speaking Filipino life, and every laugh, every blush, every kind correction was a wordless reminder that here, making mistakes wasn't shameful. It was connection. The next part of my journey would take me even deeper. I would soon discover the real secret behind why Filipinos talk, laugh, and love the way they do, and how this language, full of warmth and chaos, would change my heart forever. By my 3rd month in the Philippines, my Tagalog had evolved from total disaster to moderate chaos. I could hold conversations, kind of. I could buy groceries without accidentally proposing marriage, and I even started texting my Filipino friends in Taglish. But with every step forward, there was a new hilarious misunderstanding waiting around the corner. It all started one Sunday morning, when I was invited to a family gathering in Cavite. It was supposed to be a simple lunch. I thought it would be quiet, maybe 5 or 6 people. Nope. There were at least 30, kids running everywhere, titos grilling meat, and aunties shouting, "Kain na," every 5 minutes. I felt like I had walked into a warm, noisy embrace. When I tried to help in the kitchen, I proudly told Tita Susan, "Tita, ako bahala sa baboy." Everyone froze. The room went silent for a second before they all burst into uncontrollable laughter. Apparently, what I meant to say was, "Ako ang magluluto ng baboy. I'll cook the pork." But what I said literally meant, "I'll take care of the pig," which in Tagalog could also mean I'll be responsible for the pig. Someone yelled, "Ay, magiging magjowa kayo ni baboy." And the entire family laughed until they cried. I laughed too. Because by that point, I had learned something essential. In the Philippines, laughter is never cruel. It's an invitation. It means, you're one of us now. And that was how it began. The moment when Tagalog stopped being a language I struggled with and started being something I lived. The turning point came when I started dating someone named Carlo. He was sweet, patient, and endlessly amused by my Tagalog. On our second date, I told him, "Masaya ako kasama ka." He smiled and said, "Oh, masaya din ako kasama mo." I blinked. "Wait, what did I say wrong?" He grinned. "You said I'm happy with myself when I'm with you." The word mo makes it, "I'm happy when I'm with you," I sighed. Tagalog 101. But he found it adorable. From then on, every time I made a mistake, he'd gently correct me, then laugh and kiss my forehead like it was no big deal. Carlo introduced me to another level of Filipino humor, sarcasm disguised as sweetness. One evening, we were late for a dinner and stuck in traffic. I complained, "This traffic is killing me," and he just said, "Welcome to the Philippines," with that mischievous smile. I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't stop laughing. That's when I discovered another core Filipino word, tiis. It means to endure, and Filipinos do it every day, with patience, humor, and a kind of grace I'd never seen before. Once, during a brownout, I panicked because I couldn't charge my phone or use the fan. Carlo shrugged, pulled out a candle, and said, "Bahala na, let's make it romantic." So we sat there, sweating but laughing, eating mangoes by candlelight. I realized how Filipinos could turn any inconvenience into something beautiful. Tagalog reflects that. It's filled with words that combine struggle and hope in the same breath. Like kilig, I thought it just meant romantic excitement, but it's more than that. It's the joy that makes your heart flutter from the tiniest things, like when Carlo texted, "Ingat ka palagi," or when the neighborhood kids shouted "ate" when they saw me. And then there's lambing. It's hard to describe. Part affection, part tenderness, part emotional glue. Filipinos express love not through big speeches, but through gestures, teasing, and a softness in their tone. I noticed it everywhere. When moms called their kids anak, when couples said sige na in that half-joking, half-sweet voice when friends said tara kain tayo like it was an act of love, I started to speak like that too. Without even realizing it, my sentences softened. I stopped saying no so directly. Instead, I'd say, maybe later, huh? I started ending texts with po and huh and heh. I became Filipino in tone even when my grammar was still questionable. But the funniest moment of all came one night when Carlo introduced me to his barkada, friend group. I wanted to make a good impression, so I tried to use all the Tagalog I'd learned. When they asked how I was finding the Philippines, I proudly said, "Masaya ako dito, kasi mainit ang mga lalaki." Everyone choked on their beer. I froze. What? What did I say wrong? Carlo's face turned red from laughing. You just said the men are hot. Apparently, mainit means hot temperature-wise. I should have said mabait, kind. So I had just announced that Filipino men were physically hot, which, to be fair, wasn't entirely wrong. After the laughter died down, one of his friends said, "Don't worry, we like you already." And just like that, I was part of the barkada. From then on, every mistake I made became a story. Like the time I mixed up aso, dog, and asawa, spouse. I told Carlo's mom, "Ang ganda ng asawa mo," pointing at their golden retriever. Or when I said, "Ang bango mo," you smell good, to the lady selling fish. Every time, people just laughed, smiled, and corrected me gently. I realized that in this culture, kindness always comes before pride. You can butcher their language, and they'll still find a way to make you feel welcome. One day, during fiesta season, I joined a group of neighbors preparing food for the community. They handed me a giant ladle and told me to stir the kare-kare. As we cooked, everyone was laughing, teasing, singing. Someone joked, "Oh, Ukrainian na yan! Marunong magluto ng kare-kare." And I felt something warm in my chest. Belonging. Later that evening, after hours of laughter and endless servings of rice, I sat watching the fireworks and thought about everything I had learned. Tagalog wasn't just about words. It was a map of how Filipinos live, love, and see the world. When they say sige na, it's not just permission, it's affection. When they say pasensya na, it's humility, not weakness. When they say bahala na, it's courage disguised as surrender. Through these words, I understood why Filipinos are so resilient. Their language carries emotions that connect people, not divide them. It's full of soft endings, kind tones, and shared laughter. Even when they tease you, it feels like a hug. Carlo once told me, "You know, you speak Tagalog with your heart. That's the real way." And I realized he was right. By the time I left the Philippines for a short trip back home, my accent was still thick, my grammar still broken, but my heart spoke fluent Pinoy warmth. When I landed in Kyiv, and my mom asked how I was doing, I smiled and said, "Ayos lang po ako." She blinked. "What?" I laughed. "Never mind, Mama. It means I'm okay." But inside, it meant more than that. It meant I'm okay because I carry their laughter, their kindness, their words. That's the thing about Tagalog. It doesn't just stay on your tongue. It moves into your heart, reshapes how you see people, and teaches you to love through patience, humor, and community. So yes, I tried to speak Tagalog, and it was a big mistake at first. But it turned out to be the most beautiful mistake of my life, because through every mispronounced word, every misunderstood joke, I found something I didn't even know I was missing, a new way to belong. And as I lay in bed that night, scrolling through old photos of fiestas, tricycles and friends laughing at my grammar, I whispered to myself, "Salamat." Not just for the language, but for the love behind it. Because sometimes, you don't need to speak perfectly to be understood. You just need to speak with your heart.